Welcome back. We have a fun episode planned today. We have a big guest on here, a former podcast friend, did a bunch of podcasts together, and a fellow awards enthusiast. What's going on, Texas Tyler?
Hey, what's going on, man? I reached out to you about these really just because I was stuck on a lot of them to see if I was going to get any insight from you. Happy to definitely hop on and talk through these a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a nice episode planned here. There's quite a bit of awards, so we didn't want to make the episode crazy long. So what we decided to do is take some of the closer ballots in the AL and NL, maybe go over the top five or six toughest position ones as picked by Tyler, the ones that are pretty close, and then the rest, some of them are pretty self-explanatory. A few of the, like Cody Bellinger and a few of those guys. But yeah, we thought we'd do some of the fun tight races and kind of show our opinions and see what you guys think. So everyone's not just voting by the highest WAR. And then the rest of the episode we'll probably spend on the Gold Glove because I know me and Tyler are both huge defensive guys that really like talking about the defensive statistics. So let's start her off here. AL second base, I will let you take the reins on this one because this is an award that your boy Oswald is up for, the second baseman, Texas, with a huge season. Putting up a great fight, though, is Alberto in Baltimore with also having a 5 WAR season. What do you think about those two against each other there in that second base race for Silver Slugger?
I think maybe I'm making this a fight just because I'm rooting for my boy in this one, but in all honesty, really super identical seasons. Especially when you look from an offensive profile. They hit the same number, 302 on the dot. Figueroa is a little better at getting on base, but Peraza had a little more pop, and what's a more difficult stadium to hit in for sure. Across the board, some numbers that stand out are obviously Figueroa having just a million more runs than Peraza. But Peraza on the other end, in 130 less plate appearances, having 12 more doubles is awful impressive too. So it's tight for me, and I'll probably vote with my boy, but definitely understand the lean to a great year Figueroa had for the Orioles.
Yeah, not to be overlooked. Couple big years out of those AL East guys, Volpe and Adames, both putting up pretty big 4 WAR seasons offensively. But yeah, those top two are kind of in a class of their own there. Big time. You get 120 plus OPS and WRC plus out of your second baseman. You're getting pretty a lot of production there. And yeah, like you said, the big difference in a couple of those categories, you get a lot more stolen base out of Figueroa and a lot more walks. The Ks are the same, but if you look. The plate appearances is just so skewed, 726 compared to 590 for Peraza. A ton of plate appearances. I think that probably led the league for Alberto there as a leadoff hitter in Baltimore, must have been. But yeah, nice little battle there. So that one is nice and tight. I think the next one we got on our list here is ALDH. ALDH is a tight battle. You'd think before the year, I think a lot of people would have said Christian Pena would run away with this, but Houston had a very slow start, in large part because Christian Pena's slow start. He ended up playing 161 games, still having 700 plate appearances, and still finished with pretty solid numbers. For anyone else, that would look like a star year, but the fact that he has maybe the best bat in TLG at this point, ratings-wise, is a little bit of a down year for him. Just the fact that he has 75 contact and he's only hitting 260. So you got a pretty tight battle here between four of these guys, Ozzy Albies, Andrew Vaughn, Pena, and McAfee. Who are you leaning towards there, Tyler?
Yeah, this is a tough one. You look just kind of at the not the counting stats, but the average stats, and Andrew Vaughn is kind of in a class of his own. OPS, almost 100 points better than who's in second place, but on the other end, he only played 89 games, so that's a tough one. Kind of the middle ground between Vaughn and Pena for me is Quincy McAfee, who I think is going to end up being my lean in this, just because 135 is a good number of games. Really tough stadium to hit the ball in. 876 OPS is pretty impressive there for being in Detroit. So with it being kind of a down year from Pena, I think it's going to be McAfee for me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. It's exactly what you said. I find in almost every sports the same way. Like, I know that's a big debate right now in real life for the MVP and the NBA. I'm a big NBA guy, and I listen to the Low Post, and he always talks about the Joel Embiid versus Jokic, and it's the same thing. Embiid misses a lot of games each year with an injury thing, and the most important thing is reliability. Like you have all the talent in the world, but if you're just not in the field to prove it there. It's just you can't, like 89 games. That's barely half the season. So, and compared to Pena, who had almost double, 161. So even though he wasn't, the number 30 less WRC plus. I agree with you there. I think the middle ground would be kind of nice in McAfee, and especially nice to see a Detroit guy win an award, because I think Pena will probably win this award like 8 more times and probably has like 2 of them
Right.
already. So maybe nice to throw a little bone to Quincy McAfee there, and really did really well after that trade. Started the year pretty decent in Arizona, really picked it up in Detroit there. That was a good one. Next up, we will move over to the NL here. In the NL, Silver Slugger at first base. This is a good one here. We have two guys dead on in the WAR ratings. WRC plus separated by 8 points. Really similar right across the board. Olson and Andy Weber. Andy, I don't know if it's Weber or Weber. I always kind of change how I say that, but really interesting. Quite different players. Matt Olson is a very power heavy hitter with big time, like 45 type contact. It hits a little bit lower, 250, still solid, but probably getting juiced by Coors a little bit. He probably would be like a 235 hitter in some stadiums, but major power, major patience at the plate with almost 100 walks, and also has pretty low avoid K. So he's just going to take a lot of counts deep and 3-2 counts and such, make the pitcher throw a lot of pitches, going to hit his 30, 40, 50, even 60 home runs one year, I think he had in TLG, per season, score a bunch of runs in Colorado. But then you got definitely the more contact-oriented Andy Weber, who gets a lot of base hits, 173 hits, hit a little better. Still only hit 265, so a little bit of a down year. Even steal some bases for you, can play all over the infield. So quite different profiles here. Who are you leaning towards?
Yeah, I feel like the vote might go against, because I think in the Silver Slugger, I think that WRC plus number, or OPS gets a lot of love, but I think Weaver is pretty clearly the choice here in this one. Um, a couple things, playing for the Mets versus playing for the Rockies, and he has more both homers and extra base hits total, than Olson. Olson walks a lot, but that walk to strikeout ratio is a lot nicer for Weaver for me. So I think I'm pretty sure I'm going that way, but I could see the vote going the other way for sure.
And Drew, if you're listening, don't think I don't see the two triples by Andy here compared to Matt Olson's big fat zero. I know you're a big fan of triples, but I know you're also a big fan of Matt Olson. So yeah, that's a tough one. That's like you said, real close, man. Like almost the same amount of doubles, almost the same amount of home runs, almost the same amount of runs overall, 108 to 110. Really close. They both played the entire season, 159 to 161 games. So what a monster. That's probably as tight as it gets. So that's a really cool vote there. Yeah, I agree. I think I'd probably lean towards Andy a little bit. I know if I was doing like a fantasy type draft, I would probably prefer him on my team. He's just that contact and uh, g- gap power and home run power is just such a nice combo. Olson's kind of home run or bust sometimes, but yeah, really, really interesting race there. I love how tight that one is. Next up, we have NL third base. NL third base, we have a couple big seasons here. Fernando Tatis really leads the way by quite a significant margin in home runs and WAR, but he also gets a lot of his value from defense, where he's a lot better defender than some of these guys. So the offensive, which is what this award is, Silver Slugger has 3 guys in the 130 for WRC plus. So it depends. I know in real life some people vote the better overall player here if it's a close one. But yeah, offensively these guys are definitely worth mentioning. As Suarez had a monster career year in Atlanta with 33 bombs, had a really solid season, hitting 282. And then Kate Doughty, another young guy, has had back-to-back 4 WAR seasons, 5.4 this year actually in Colorado. Big reason for their playoff success. And I know Tatis started very slowly too, which hurts a bit. But yeah, those top 3 are pretty close. I like each of the season those 3 had. What do you think stands out about those seasons?
Yeah, this might be the most fun one of all for me, because I see really good reasons to vote for all three. Tatis leads them all in home runs, but Suarez only 2 behind, and a considerably less amount of plate appearances, and just kind of his overall stats are, from just an offensive perspective, are a little cleaner. Um, you know, Tatis with 30 doubles and 35 home runs is tough to overlook, especially for a guy of his caliber. But then Dowdy hitting almost 300. He's not quite the slugger that the other two are, but the 8 triples, 36 doubles. This is one I'm still hovering over making a decision on, because I could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, the non-biased part of me likes it too. I think Tatis is itching for the award because he actually got a little screwed last year. I played him at second base a ton with some injuries last year, and he split. I think he had like 80 games at third and or second, and like 70 games at third. So he actually didn't qualify for either spot for the awards, and he probably would have run away with Silver Slugger at either of them. Probably, I actually would have won the Gold Glove at third. So it really hurt him last year. This year he qualified at third base because I didn't play him at second very much, only about 15 games. But yeah, that I love that how close that is. K Doughty makes a ton of contact. That batting average is almost 300, which is pretty nasty for a guy with as much power as he has. What a nice young talent he is. And I love seeing those old guys having those huge years. That's one of my favorite things about TLG. When you just get a random ass like 35-year-olds had a couple down years, and guy just comes out and smashes 140 WRC plus and on a really good Atlanta team. So it's just so cool. So cool when you have those kind of late bloomers. So love that award. That's gonna be a nice one too. Next on your list, we got NL shortstops as the next very close race. Yeah, of course, you get some star power here. Holy smokes! Uh, what we got here is Robert Puason and Luke Leto leading the way by quite a significant margin. Those guys are both in the 140s for WRC plus. They have the identical OPS plus of .90 each, 900, and they both have very similar stats right across the board, except for one big category, which is home runs. What a difference, 35 to 11. So quite different hitting profiles, but you definitely have two guys that are bringing pretty equal value overall.
Yeah, yeah, this feels like a couple of the ones we touched on, Suarez and Vaughn, where it seems like the 30 missed games are probably going to cost Leto in this one. Um, the 35 to 11 in home runs, but Leto leads 46 to 27 in doubles. On a per game basis, I would lean Leto, I think, just how that would extrapolate if he had the same number of games, but um, that line and that season from Puasen's a little too tough to ignore. So I think that's another fun vote. It's one where Leto leads in OPS and WRC plus, so I think he'll get some votes in it. But I do lean in Puasen and having the better year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you look at plate appearances, almost 170 plate appearances difference between the two. So not only was it the 30 games, but I think Boston probably even had more plate appearances per game or something than Leto, just by a smudge. So yeah, quite a big difference there. The RBIs too, 40 more for Boston. So yeah, some of those counting stats are just like you mentioned, exactly what you said, really tough to overlook. But man, that OB on base percentage is 35 points higher for Luke Leto. What a monster player, man. 400 on base percentage from that shortstop, 46 doubles. Would have hit I think he would have hit close to 60 doubles if he played 155 games. That's
Yep.
just insane. So, but yeah, and then on top of all that, you have almost triple the stolen base from Pawson. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think Pawson get a little bit of a just overall saying a little bit healthier is probably is the difference here. You're totally right, but it's tough to not give any love to Leto. You hate to see a guy have that good of a year and not win a Silver Slugger, and when you get such tight races in some of those positions. But it's not the end of the world. It's just a minor award there. But that'll do it for our Silver Slugger rankings. Like I said, we don't want to make this video like 2 hours long, go over every single award, because our favorite is coming up. The Gold Glove is going to take quite a while here. So let's start with the AL, and we'll go position by position and just kind of go over some of the favorites here. You get catcher wise, if you sort it here, you get a couple big years. And catcher is the toughest to do on here because it doesn't show most of the important stats. It doesn't show catcher ERA, and it doesn't show runners thrown out. So you're kind of missing some stuff here. What I will say to start this is Shea Langeliers led the league, throwing out 49% of batters, which is one of the most outrageous numbers I've ever seen. It was like 10 or 15% higher than anyone else in baseball. And it does show the caught stealing percentage here. Yeah, 49. So crazy season out of him, and also led the league in zone range. But the catch ERA is quite a bit higher than some other names on this list. Reese McGuire is sitting down here, sixth on the list in zone range, but the dude had like a 3.2 catcher ERA, which is outrageous. What do you think about this race here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cases to be made. You mentioned that Langolier stat. That's just absolutely insane. So, I think that gets him in the conversation right away. And then I think all three guys that caught those three good staffs, in Antonio Gomez, who is second in caught stealing percentage behind Langoliers, in Texas, and then I think Grandal and Reese have really, I mean, Grandal caught a rookie to, we'll get into it, but just a insane season. So, McGuire and Grandal, the experts in catching guys running, but, they do a great job calling games for their pitchers, obviously. So, a lot of different directions here. It's just kind of up to what people look at for the award, but I'll be voting Gomez for sure.
Yeah, especially Grandal. I think he's won a bunch of these in a row. I could be wrong. I'll have to pull it up in the game later. I think if we look at Grandal, let's see here. I got my other screen up here. Grandal has won. Does it not show Silver Sluggers on here? Four-time. Yeah, here it is. 2024, he won. 2021, 2023, and 2025. So yeah, he's essentially won every year except for one or two in TLG for the 6 years. Just a crazy career he's had. But yeah, the zone range wasn't quite so high for Grandal this year. I think every other year he's led the league in that by a pretty big amount. So he's finally starting to age. Finally, at 37 years old, just a little bit though. I mean, like, damn, like you said, that staff was like top three in pitching still and led in a bunch of categories. But yeah, what a crazy career he's had. Some big names on there. I'll have to think about that one a little more. I still don't know who I'd vote for. But I agree. Yeah, Gomez, like you said, Texas, your boys there had crazy pitching stats. So you got to give a lot of credit to the catcher there, especially how you mentioned like second league and throwing guys out. He'll definitely be one of the front runners for me too. All right, next up we'll go to first base. We have the ever awesome fielder Evan White, who seems to lead the league in zone range every season from first base in the AL. But the same always goes where I kind of penalize him a bit personally for the bat, which I know might be a little bit unfair, and I'm sure some people disagree with if it's just a pure defensive award. But I don't like to vote a guy I don't think is like a really plus player just because they're solid on defense at a position that's not quite as impactful as others. But maybe I have the wrong philosophy there. Do you kind of tend to go in a more defensive direction than me, or are you kind of the same wave?
I usually, I think if I use that more kind of as a tiebreaker than a qualifier. I think if two guys I can basically just pick straws over, I would go to the one who's the more complete player for sure. But I've never allowed them just not being able to hit to be a not a qualifier. So um, that being said, I think if you just look at the defensive numbers, White is probably the vote here. Has the most, way up there in terms of assists. I think he has the most, and then four errors is among the least. So he's obviously elite. I think if you're looking for someone kind of does it all, is probably Vladdy. He had a really nice defensive year for the Jays, and he's obviously a great offensive talent. So it's kind of razor thin. It's not, White usually has a pretty big lead here, and it's a little thinner with guys like Logan Davidson and Vladdy right behind him. So, yeah, I could see some different directions here as well.
Yeah, the assist thing really jumps out at me because the putouts are almost the exact same. The amount of games and innings are almost the same for Vladdy and White. But yeah, he's got those 30, so he gets a lot of runners out. Maybe that just means Seattle's not as good. There's guys on first base a lot that he throws out
Yeah,
second, but
right.
I'd imagine maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I see what you mean there. That is a little closer than that first look. So interesting race there. Second base here, we'll move on. We have every year, it seems like Willie Adames just runs away with this award. An absolute monster. This year, he played quite a bit of games at shortstop, so the zone range was split between those two spots. Some guys did have some really nice years right behind him, though. It's not quite the gap that it usually is, kind of like the White thing you talked about at first base. That three or four zone range behind, and about the same amount of errors as Morrissey. And a big time year out of the really slow bat in Minnesota, but an awesome defensive player. If you look here, he played 15 less games, but he had about 90 more total chances and one less error, actually, more double plays. So a really big year to him. Same kind of thing. It's like, do you reward Adames whose bat's like way better than Morrissey, or do you give that nod to Morrissey? And then you also have a pretty nice year out of Anthony Volpe, who had a big amount of errors, but I think as we talked about in my defensive stats video, he also had a pretty heavy range and was making it to some pretty tough balls based on his stats there. So some interesting years here, and then your boy Oswalt, really solid defensive year there in Texas, pretty big zone range rating, and then you have a glut of guys right around zero. So it's a really strong defensively in the AL at second base with only two guys that aren't great defenders there, but everyone else in the NL or sorry, AL is like a 55-60 range second baseman. Even at the bottom of the list there, you have some pretty good defenders like Nico Horner, some really nice ratings. A little bit of a down year for his ratings, but really nice group there for second base this year. Makes the decision tough for me.
Yeah, I think I think I'm pretty clear on this one. I think it's Volp. You know, I think I might be giving him credit for playing you know, more credit than he should for playing a full season, 154 games at the position. You know, he does have double the errors of Adamas, but the fielding percentages are almost identical with you know, with just how many chances Volp had. You know, that 472 assist number is crazy, all the double plays, and a lot of chances. I just because he was there the whole season, I think he ends up being my vote at the position.
Yeah, that's a good point. I glossed over that a little too fast. Those double plays, that's really significant. 61 and 69, and then 112 if you sort them by zone range. That's pretty crazy. Adamas definitely is the more rangy player, but yeah, like as you said, I think the amount of games, like 87 games started for him compared to 153. Um, yeah, same as before. It's almost, and it wasn't really an injury thing with Adamas. Boston likes to get some more rest with a big division lead. Volpe was trotting out there almost every day, so yeah, I could definitely understand people voting him for the reliability factor, even though Adamas is a little flashier player, probably making some pretty crazy balls with that super high zone range every year. So, yeah, that's a really interesting, tricky vote. At third base, we got Bobby Witt Jr. has won the last two Gold Gloves and looks like he'll definitely be in the running this year. Really tight race here between the top three. You get Cruz. Cruz had quite a bit of errors, which puts him kind of like a little maybe of a bit of a distant third. But Rafael Morel had a big year, and you also get Bobby Witt Jr. playing pretty solid. And there's a lot of guys in that same range at like -2 zone range with about 20 errors. So you really do just have kind of the top two, and then like 3, 4, 5 are in a similar tier, and then a big drop off. So I think definitely Bobby Witt looks like the front runner to me. And the same argument you said for Volpe, where he just seemed to have a lot more games played than the other guys. 154 games compared to second place 700. The double plays is leads in double plays, least amount of errors, highest zone range, and highest putouts. So definitely, I'd say Bobby Witt's quite a front runner here. Do you think anyone else has a pretty good argument for it?
Yeah, if maybe if I got Justin Cologne up a couple months earlier and he qualified, I'd have a shot in this. But no, I think Witt runs. I couldn't even make a case really for anyone else in this award. So I think he makes it three in a row here.
Yeah, I forgot how Cologne must have played what, like 80 or 75 games. I think you need about
Not
100
even. I
games to
don't think.
qualify, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he did play the whole year. I forgot about that. So yeah, he definitely would have been up there. That's a rangy dude. What was his zone range? Let's pull it up here in the game. He must have been like +10. That guy has unbelievable range. Oh, it was only +3 actually, but yeah, only 80 games. So yeah, he definitely would have
Hmm.
been with a little more playtime there. I think he would have been the conversation for sure. Shortstop here. This is a tough one. There is some unbelievable shortstops in TLG on both the NL and the AL side. You get some incredible defensive specialists here in the AL. This award here, you have four guys with 10 or higher zone range, pretty much. All four guys are very, very elite arm wise, too. They all have strong arms, all super rangy, all athletic. This award, you can't really go wrong with any of the selections. Do you find any one individual stat kind of pops out at you, or do you kind of have a tough one with this one?
This is an extremely tough one. Like you said, all those top four are really good. I think the two numbers that stick out to me the most are the 443 assists and the 108 double plays for Eduardo Garcia. Um, the all their fielding percentages at the you know Myers kind of the better glove, but lacks a little bit of the range that those top three do. And I think just Garcia, and maybe I'm just you know getting sucked into all the more chances and everything, but I think to me he has the most impressive resume across the board.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think Noah Smith is up there in the range, but he has pretty significant less amount of double plays. He also does have a little bit less errors than those top guys, but he also has quite a bit. Um, yeah, the range just really is so high for him. He's such a rangy dude. But yeah, I think Angelton is kind of like a Grandal thing where he's won so many of these in a row. just runs away with it. I think Eduardo maybe, for me, probably overtook that top spot. And I agree, when you're doing 300 more innings than the guy you're up against, that's quite a big tiebreaker. That's almost 30% more innings when you're talking like almost 1,400 innings compared to like 1,100. So pretty, or not quite 30%, but pretty close to like 20-25. So quite a bit more innings there for Garcia in Baltimore. Really, really awesome year from all those guys. Though you just hate to see so how good some of those guys are and not get a shot at it. But Garcia is just an absolute beast out there. So I think he might actually take down the legend there, Andrelton Simmons. I'm gonna look up in the game how many Andrelton has now. Gold gloves in this career. Oh my goodness, the dude has 8 gold gloves in this
I
TLG
was gonna
career.
wonder if you're close to double digits. Yeah.
Holy smokes, what an absolute legend. So, yeah, he won the award in 25, 24, 23, and 20. So he only didn't win in 20 and 20 and 21. Or sorry, just 21, I guess. And 22 he didn't win. So I don't know what happened those years. He was injured or there's actually somebody better. I can't really remember. But oh yeah, so he split between the AL and the NL one year. So maybe those votes got screwed up between that. And then yeah, someone must have won it over him in 22. But yeah, what an absolute legend. But I think it might be Garcia's time now. So we'll move on to
Hmm.
the left field position here. Left field is always an interesting one. I know the guys don't get nearly enough chances. It really makes the sample size a little bit tougher. I really seem to value outfield assists when I'm doing this. The number to me that is just blowing up, I don't know how, but is 5 double plays out of Alex
Yeah.
Verdugo. Is he play another position, or why is he have so many double plays? What the heck?
Yeah, that's a crazy one to me. No one else with more than two. So it definitely seems like an outlier in the
Yeah,
category.
he didn't play any infield, so it's not like he's getting the infield stats or something from that. That's all in the outfield. So I don't know how that's possible, but what a crazy stat that kind of jumps off the page at me. He also did only finish third in zone range, but he did have the most outfield assists. So yeah, it's going to be tough to not vote him with how weird that stat is. 5 double plays out of the outfield. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one to me. Kierstad's another guy who's right there in terms of he's at 7 assists, but the 6 errors is a little bit of an outlier for me. Riley Green, gets a little bit of love for me for 150 games without an error at the position. That's awful impressive, regardless of only throwing 3 guys out. Not the position you really have the big arm in anyway. So this could go a lot of different directions. I think everyone from Verdugo, Hayes, Josh Lowe, Riley Green, Kierstad all have a pretty nice case in their own rights to win it.
Yeah, that's really tricky. I love the Riley Green season, like you said. That's a lot of games to not have an error. I know in the
Yeah.
past I voted some left fielders based on the 0 error as a main tiebreaker, and it's not like he's that far behind zone range. Like the other guys are only 4 points higher. It's not like they're at like plus 15 or something. So I might actually have to go with Riley Green here, but not far behind him is Jeremy De La Rosa, another guy with 113 games there, which is quite a bit less than Green. So I don't think I'd vote him over. But shout out to another guy with 100 or 1,000 fielding efficiency. There was 0 errors. Yeah, what an interesting group of guys here. That's I'd have to say my vote's Riley Green. I love it. Next up, we have center field, which this is a little more top heavy. We have 5 guys with pretty significant zone range ratings, all within 2 to 3 errors, and all's very similar runners thrown out, except for Corbin Carroll's quite a bit lower than the other guys. But and then you have quite a big drop off, and then you have about 5 or 6 guys in the league with 0 or below zone range. So I think you have a pretty clear group at the top here, some beast defenders there with Bannister, Drew Jones, Corbin Carroll, and Christian Robinson. And Christian Robinson is very athletic out there. 12 outfield assists with 13.6 zone range is pretty amazing, with also at the least amount of errors out of that group. A couple guys there only having 2. I know Drew Jones has an amazing skill set there too in Kansas City and is a big weapon for a team that made the playoffs because of their defense there. So he was big time too. And then your boy Bannister there is very rangy out there in Texas with the league leading defense, kind of leading the way out there in the outfield. So a lot of good options in center field too.
Yeah, there are. I tried to make a case against Christian Robinson, and maybe this is a case where you go for an overall skill set in a guy like Carroll or Bannister than kind of just a defensive just weapon. But Robinson's numbers are just kind of better across the board in every way I look at them. So it's a tough vote against for a really good fielder.
I agree there. I love Robinson's game. I think I think I'd have to go with him at the vote there too. But yeah, those other guys are all really solid seasons there. Or even Urbina there as a fifth guy, 6.8 zone range, 8 outfield assists. That's a lot of runners thrown out. Anytime an outfielder's getting 10 outfielders assists there, that's pretty nasty. Big time talent in the center field in the AL. That's for sure. That's going to be a tough one for years because I think all those top names are pretty young there. At the top, Carroll, Robinson, Drew Jones, all and Bannister and Urbina, all 26 or younger. So that award is going to be tricky for multiple years in a row. I think even Brandon Marsh, I'm surprised he's so far down. He's a pretty solid player, more of a corner stud, I guess. Next up, we have right field. This award has pretty clear top four and then a big drop off. Not too many guys qualifying here. I guess a lot of guys playing a lot of innings in left field or whatever reason, but we only have 7 guys qualify for this award. We got a guy that really stands out there, 13 outfield assists out of Oakland. That number really stands out to me. 10 for the White Sox boy here. Only 2 for Robles, but the dude is very rangy. So this is an interesting vote here where there's a little bit more variety in the statistics here. 0 errors out of your guy in Texas there with the 6 zone range. So some really solid seasons out of those top guys.
Yeah, you touched on those four. It's an interesting, it's an interesting debate for me at least between Robles, Gonzalez, and Buelvis. Um, Robles with the lower number of games, but obviously the rangier guy. Gonzalez kind of a mix between Robles and Buelvis in terms of games played and just skill set in terms of throwing out guys and fielding well. And then, like you said, 13 assists for Buelvis is a tough number to ignore, even with the 5 errors. So I think it's a vote that ends up going to Robles as he leads by a pretty significant margin in zone range. But a homer pick again probably for me, and I'll be going with Robert Gonzalez.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think just looking at those innings and the amount of games, Robles just 100 of 160 games, and we talked about it like the same thing with Andrew Vaughn earlier. I really have a tough time voting for any of the major award guys with anyone under like 110 games. Just seems like it's just too much of the season lost. Where Gonzalez didn't play a ton either, like 120, still is missing about 40, 50 games. But I think the difference in outfield assists and about the same range and the 0 error kind of stands out again to me. I think I would actually just by a bit lean towards Gonzalez too. But let's not do pitcher because that always bugs me. It's too close and there's a
That's a
million
tough one.
options. So let's just skip that. Great Glove Award. Let's move over to the NL here. We will go to catcher to start. This division is just loaded with defensive specialists at catcher. We got Drew Romo, Ali Sanchez, Real Mutu, Hedges, all just amazing defensive ratings. Some of them had kind of down years when it comes to the zone range, but I kind of go by different stats when it comes to the catchers. I like using the catcher ERA, looking at the stolen base, caught stealing percentages, and the lack of errors. And what doesn't show on here is actually pass balls, which I really like as a stat. I know Drew Romo's always pretty much leads the league in that. It's only like 5 a year, and all the other guys seem to have like 15, 20. I love that stat too. But so I wish it would show a couple different stats on this site. But this one's pretty close. Austin Hedges has run away with the last couple, but it looks like a pretty dang close vote this season.
Yeah, you look at just kind of what it gives you on Stats Plus, and it feels like Real Muto's the vote. Just in terms of him leading in caught stealing and just being very efficient behind the plate, I don't know. It feels like he would be the vote. Um, I would probably lean towards like Joey Bart, who caught a really good staff in San Francisco. Kind of has a mix of everything in terms of catching runners at a good clip, having some good range, um, you know, playing among the most games in the group as well. So, and only 2 errors there for Bart sticks out for me compared to everyone else having at least 4. So yeah, I think it's Joey Bart for me, but again, a lot of good candidates.
Yeah, personally, I'd have to go with Austin Hedges. I think I value the just the game he brings so much to Arizona. I think he is probably the biggest reason Arizona made the playoffs, even over Trout, or about the same as Trout. An absolute monster behind the plate, making those pitchers so much better. That doesn't show that catcher ERA, but just so valuable, that staff. And I like how he also led in double plays and only 4 errors, and he had the highest range factor at 11. So I really like, and right up there with the league leaders in caught stealing percentages. So I'd say I'd probably be. I'm a big Austin Hedges guy. I'd probably go with him. I think Bart and Real Mutu, like you said, had really nice seasons too. That probably wouldn't be too far behind. Next up, we have first base. We have a nice race here. You get a lot of similar seasons here. A couple guys at the top that you got the Matt Olson with some big bulk stats, 153 games played. You really notice his total chances stand out above the rest. But a big time season now, DJ LeMahieu in Miami, an amazing fielder, playing first base there at 38 years old. He's got the least errors and the highest zone range, which is a pretty nice combo. I think for most people that probably gets him the vote. But there's a couple names here that are really good defenders. Like Anthony Rendon's a really good third base defender who slid over to first there, obviously, since they have the GOAT there at third base, Arenado, the best defender of all time there with 70 range. But yeah, some really solid seasons. Personally, I think DJ LeMahieu kind of jumps out at me for sure.
Yep, it's yeah, you mentioned him. I think it's pretty much between LeMahieu and Olsen for this one. They're pretty neck and neck. I do think I lean LeMahieu too, even with the some of those counting stats being quite a significant amount less than Olsen's are. But I don't think you could go wrong with either one of those two. I think they're both very good first base defensively.
Yeah, big time weapons there. 6'4" and 6'5". Those two guys, and both pretty athletic. Both guys were like third base and second base when they were younger. Olsen played a lot of third base, I think, in the minors. So some really athletic guys there at first base, that's for sure. Next up at second base, we have a pretty nice group here. We got a couple guys at the top that have really nice seasons. The stat that really jumps out at me is the lack of errors from Tyler Freeman. 108 games, which is quite a bit less than Gilorm here, 30 less games, but only 2 errors and almost the same amount of double plays as Gilorm. So Tyler Freeman had a really nice combination between those two, but Gilorm also had a lot more innings and had about 3 higher zone range, and a lot of stats like the efficiency was higher too. So, and the assist was quite a bit higher. So it's kind of interesting here. I think Freeman has a real good shot. I don't think anyone else is even close to those two guys. The third place in zone range has 15 errors compared to 2 for Freeman. I just don't know if I can get over that low error for Freeman there. But Gilorm, I think, kind of deserves it too. So that's a tough one for me between those two.
Yep, I'm right with you. That's a complete toss up for me. I think I'd probably lean Guillorme just because I mean that's a big jump in fielding percentage difference. I don't know actually. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty on the fence about that.
Yeah, I have to think about that for a
Yeah,
little longer. I think more I think about it, the more I kind of lean towards Louis. I think sticking with what I said earlier, it's hard voting those major awards for the guys that have under 110 games is kind of the number
yep.
for me, and 104 games is pretty little. And I know it's only 30 games, but 30 games isn't like it's quite a bit of games at the same time. The 2 to 7 error. Like it's not like 7 errors is bad either. It's not like Freeman had average errors and Gilorm had a lot. It was like Gilorm still had a low amount of errors. It was just Freeman had a very low, significantly good year. But Gilorm at only 7 errors for second baseman with 540 total chances is still really good. Like all these other guys only have like 15 here, right? But so I think Louis would be my pick, but not by much. That'd be by like a hair. So I'd probably maybe change my mind though before I put my official votes in. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Third base here we have the GOAT, as I just mentioned, Arenado. Arenado wins this award in real life almost every year. He is a defensive stud. He's pretty old in TLG, and so some guys have started to catch up to him a little bit. Cabrian Hayes has 70 range, a huge range guy. And Tatis, obviously, like a shortstop playing third with some big time range and big time arm. Couple guys right at the top that you do have quite a bit of errors out of Arenado compared to Tatis, but he also did play quite a bit of games. Drew Doughty only had 10 errors in about the same amount of games as Arenado. The guy, funny enough, that he was traded for, and he also has quite a bit of double plays there. That 27 is very high. The total chances about the same. So Doughty and Arenado stats are actually kind of interestingly similar. It's just the zone range is so high for Arenado. I think for a lot of people that's going to stand out, but the errors might make some people question it, and maybe Tatis get a few votes. That's hard to say there.
Yeah, you basically articulated everything that was going through my mind on this one. that 953 fielding percentage for Arenado is, it's making the case against Arenado, right? For this award, you have to figure out a way not to give it to him, just because he is so good at the position, rangy. So it's, with the 16 errors and, you know, Doughty kind of having the same amount of chances, but having more assists and double plays. Um, it's definitely a debate. I could go either way on that one. I probably, it's kind of a longevity award for Arenado, but yeah, the gap is definitely, closing between him and other guys at the position.
Yeah, and the reason I both of us probably didn't mention is Brian Hayes is I just I don't think I could vote a guy that only started 87 games. It's just a little
Right.
bit too low. It's one thing to start 95 or even 100. Like I said, anything under 110 is a little tough, but that's pretty low. 87 is just barely half the games. I know he played in 111. Pittsburgh moves around quite a bit, so he probably did defensive sub in some of those games or pinch hit. But yeah, with only 87 starts and the total chances being so low at 188, almost everyone on this list is 300. So as good as he was at 97% fielding percentage, that just total amount of numbers is just too low for me. So definitely those top two guys, I think. But I don't think Doughty's too far behind in third place. I think Tatis and Arenado are so rangy there. They'd be so fun to watch in real life. That's a tough vote for me. Shortstop. This one is quite a bit easier. This has the league leader in zone range. The guy at the top here was unbelievable. And if you look at these stats, the double plays just jumps off the page at you. 112 double plays out of Gabriel Arias in Cincinnati. I can't imagine how fun that would be to watch an 80 range shortstop that's that flashy, that quick of hands to turn that many double plays. I think that would be like the modern day wizard there, like Ozzy.
Yeah, I mean, and you can't even, it's obviously propped up, but the bat's not even I mean, it's not even a terrible bat from Arias. So, um, it's a pretty easy vote there. He's just kind of hands above the field. Leto is one that's going to make this interesting, I think, soon. Especially just how he progresses at the position. I think his numbers could look good here, but it's I mean, he's probably the best defender we have in the game in a row. So easy vote there.
Yeah, what an absolute freak. But yeah, like you said, it's tough. If you look at it for the future, I expect a lot of close votes between Pois and Leto and Arias in the future. Leto is so good defensively; like he just doesn't get many errors. Those 8 errors, I know it's a lot less games than those other guys, but his at an 80 error rating he has, he just doesn't make many mistakes there. 98.2% fielding percentage there. It's just amazing. So, really, 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 really good shortstops in both the AL and the NL. And I just realized the other guy that's up there is the best fielder in the league. Must not have qualified for the AL is Alex Reyes in Toronto. That guy's insane stats. He must not have played enough games to qualify or had enough at bats because I don't remember him from the AL rankings we were talking about. We didn't skip over shortstop, did we?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm not crazy. Okay. So next up, we have left field. This one is another. The left field's always an interesting vote. This one is really weird this year. I cannot stop looking at how low all these zone ranges are. There's a lot of bad fielders here in left field in the NL with only two guys over a 1.8 zone range. So you'd have to imagine that the number one pick here would have to be Brian Hernandez, seemingly double the range of number two and a bunch more outfield assists. The only guy that the only stat that really gives him a run for his money anywhere else on this page is the 13 outfield assists by Turso in Miami there, but his zone range is a lot lower. So I don't know where you go with this award. This is probably the weakest position group I've seen for any of the major Gold Glove awards so far.
Yep, gotta be. I think Brian Hernandez is. I'm with you. I think he kind of wins this out of default. It's not anything crazy impressive, but he's good. He's a very good defender out there, obviously. But just no real case I could make. Even Ornelas is kind of. It seems like he's throwing the ball over the place with 6 errors. So, and only 190 and 287 chances. So, yeah, I think it's Hernandez for sure in this one.
Yeah, it's funny seeing Spencer Torkelson so high up there, just compared to his real life profile, more of like a first base type. Love it. 8 years in the future, and he's still trotting out the high level on defense there. What a beast in TLG he's been. Next up, this one is my favorite each year. I've talked about this multiple times of how unbelievable both these guys are, and I think I've been talking about it since 2022 or something. That this award is going to be these two buggers, Christian Pache and Pete Armstrong every single year, and every year it doesn't disappoint. Where these guys have almost identical stats. Yet again, this double play jumps out at me with 5 out of Pache and 0 out of PCA. But PCA does have some more outfield assists, does have the higher zone range by a smidge. But I think this year, personally, Pache's, he does have 5 errors though, so I don't know. But I was just going to say Pache there, but that 5 errors compared to 2 makes me question that a little bit more. But because I was looking at and the range factor is quite a bit higher out of Pache, so a little bit more mistakes out of Pache. But he also had way less games played. That's very interesting. The total chances is so close, which is so weird to me because Pete Armstrong had 40 more starts. Really, really weird stats skewed this year for those two.
Yeah, Pittsburgh pitchers not letting many balls to the outfield is guess
Oh
how
yeah, I guess
I'm
that's what it
reading that.
is. Good
Yeah.
point.
No,
Jeez.
I mean, not like St. Louis's staff is bad or anything. They have a really good staff too. So,
Yeah.
this is super interesting. I think there's 4 really good cases to be made. For PCA for Harrison Bader, the games are a lot smaller, but the best fielding percentage and was just very clean out there. I think Byron Buxton has a good shout for it for the Dodgers. But I think I end up going with PCA in this. Just the 11 assists is the most of anyone that could play the position. You see Brian Reynolds down there, but he has a
Ooh.
-20 zone rating.
Oh my
So,
God.
um,
Jeez.
yeah, outside of that, I think PCA is the strongest profile, and he's obviously an elite defender. So I'm going with him.
Yeah, I think hearing you talk there, I think you convinced me. I thought it was pretty close there, maybe in Pache, but yeah, some of those reasons you gave, I think I have to go with PCA. You're right there. Quite like 155 games at such high level out there, pretty nasty. Yeah, 99.5% fielding percentage. What a beast out there. All those guys are so good at the top there. Those top 4 are just so rangy. Love to have any of those guys defensively. Next up, we have right field. Right field, we have a huge season out of Jason Dominguez. Right behind him is Ronald Acuna Jr., with a super, super good defensive profile. Also, and then you have a bunch of guys grouped up behind them with such similar stats. Springer has a lot of outfield assists. Juan Segura has played a pretty solid right field this year. Daz Cameron was solid, didn't have many games though. Danny Vallejo is a real nice arm out there in right field in a big San Diego stadium. Pretty solid season too, but I think to me, those top 2 guys are kind of in a class of their own there, and I'd say Jason Dominguez is quite a bit higher. But you do have the 3 more outfield assists by Acuna Jr. But I think, yeah, Dominguez's zone range just really jumps up there. 13.3 is just so high.
Yeah, I think it's really tight between these top 2. I think I'm with you, and I lean Dominguez just because that number's outrageous for zone rating. But I think it's really close between him and Acuna. The assists are a nicer number. Less errors from Jason Dominguez is nice too. So, defensive efficiency, they're pretty much, Acuna actually leads, which is wild. But
Yeah, it's 200
um,
less innings. That's pretty significant. I didn't really notice that right away. But so he does have 5 higher zone range and 200 less innings. So the range is definitely big time in Dominguez's favor. But yeah, Acuna was pretty awesome fielding the ball too, and did play a little healthier for 150 games there. So definitely has some stuff going in his favor. That's for sure.
mhm.
What a good awards voting there. I think I really liked going over, especially the NL has some really solid players at center field, right field, and shortstop and third base. Really nasty. I love the how close so many of those position groups are really tight for me. I had a lot of fun talking about those and going over those spots. So I think some guys will be having some really tough decisions coming up. So I'll probably throw my official ballot in after tomorrow. I'll just think about a few of those close ones a little bit more. I was kind of torn on about 5 of those at least.
Yep.
Really, really tight ones. So we'll end the episode there. I think it was going to go a little long if we did all the awards. So we'll probably do a part 2 with the major awards coming up. Cheers, guys.